The view is we don't need anybody else. And any encroachment or restraints on our actions as a nation are absolutely unacceptable. We should, because we are the most powerful nation on earth, we should be able to dictate our will in very absolute terms. In terms of how we think about culture and social issues. We've seen the rise of people who believe that if you do not subscribe to a particular interpretation of a particular religion, then you are suspect and you're potentially immoral. And that, I don't think, characterizes the majority of Republicans in the country. And it doesn't characterize, I would argue that it doesn't characterize the best of the Republican Party. But those are the folks who've been driving the agenda over the last 10 years. And so there has always been a contrary set of ideas that, at least since FDR, have been at the core of the Democratic Party. And that says, no, you are not on your own. Yes, we value individual initiative and self-reliance and the freedom of the marketplace, but we also affirm that we have some mutual obligations towards each other, that we have some fellow feeling, some sense of solidarity, some belief in community. And that has to express itself not just in our churches or mosques or synagogues, not just in our families or our neighborhoods or our ethnic enclaves. It has to express itself through our government and through our notions of citizenship. Now, the Democrats haven't always been true to that ideal, and oftentimes we deserve criticism for betraying that ideal. But that idea, I think, continues to be what holds together the Democratic Party. So at this stage, when we look at the fact that 46 million people don't have health insurance, or we look at the fact that we don't have an energy policy that would not only help our economy, but also strengthen our national security and deal with our environment, or we look at an education system that continues to fail large numbers of children so that they have no way of accessing the global economy, then I think it's clear that things have swung out of balance. And the last point I'd make on this, that's why the Democrats, I think, should win. The reason I think Democrats will win is because, as I've traveled around the country, what I'm struck by is a sense of soberness and seriousness among people right now. People want substantive responses to the challenges that we face. And I know that this is a nonpartisan event, but I will go ahead and say, since you asked the question, I think that the election here in Massachusetts for governor is a prime example, where my good buddy, Deval Patrick, has presented an agenda, and the reason people are responding to that agenda and not responding to the usual negative ads that have just been, plastered all over television screens in Massachusetts is because people want to know, what are you going to do about these problems? And you're seeing that all across the country. And that, I think, is a terrific turn of events. Now, it forces then Democrats to actually have an affirmative agenda.
Right.
It's not going to be sufficient simply to say, we're not Bush. We can't try to flip the script and simply say, all right, as bad as they are, you should vote for us. Because that means the next election cycle, they're going to take it out on Democrats.
Well, the election's close. Is that agenda in place?
Well, I think the other side's so bad right now that we're going to get through the next 3 weeks. So I was referring to 08.
We'll get to that.
Where I think if Democrats don't show some leadership and an affirmative set of solutions to some of these challenges, even if we can't get all of those solutions passed, then I think we'll be punished. People want serious answers to these problems, and If you're going to talk about energy, for example, the easiest thing in the world is to look at ExxonMobil's profits last quarter and say, these folks are making $36 billion in one quarter, and the CEO's making $500 million, and gas prices are high, and we're getting gouged. That may be sufficient because it does describe the degree to which the powerful have made out like bandits over the last several years. That may be sufficient to get us through this election, but after the election, people then are going to say, okay, smart guy, what are we going to do about energy? And at that point, Democrats are going to have to say, okay, we've got to sift through the range of proposals that are out there, from your fellow communist Tom Friedman, who's been pushing a higher gas tax, to what can we do to develop cellulosic ethanol in the way that Brazil has done, to expanding biodiesel and other sources of alternative fuels, to reducing consumption by retrofitting buildings and industry. We've got to make a series of proposals that actually make sense. And I think if we do, then the American people are going to stand up and say, keep going. And they will understand, and we can be honest with them, that there's no panaceas. I mean, most of the challenges that we face, there's no silver bullet. I have a lot of town hall meetings in Illinois, and one of the favorite topics that I bring up is the issue of the federal budget. Because typically what will happen is it'll be a crowd. Sometimes we get town hall meetings of 2,000 people. And I'll get one person who's saying, we need health care or mental health to be included in health care coverage. Another person will say, no child left behind, left the money behind, and we need more money for schools. And somebody else will say, the bridge needs to be repaired, and so forth and so on. And then at some point somebody will say, why are you supporting the death tax? And then at that point I will say, okay, look, a basic principle of the federal budget, there's no free lunch. There's no free lunch. If you want to eliminate the estate tax, well, that'll cost us $1 trillion. It affects 0.5% of the population. If we completely eliminate it, it costs $1 trillion. We've got three ways of dealing with it. That $1 trillion. We can make it up by raising taxes on the other 99.5%. We can borrow $1 trillion from China and South Korea and Mexico. Or we can reduce services by $1 trillion. Those are our choices. And I think when you describe those choices to the American people in an honest, straightforward way, then I'm your representative. You tell me what is going to reflect our values. Because we can't, there's not $1 trillion worth of waste in the federal budget. Over 90% of the federal budget goes to Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, defense, and payments on the national debt. And about 10% is left over for everything else. We'd have to eliminate everything else, and we would still have to make further cuts. Is that reflective of your values and your ideals? And most of the time, I don't care whether it's a Republican. I'll have these town hall meetings in all Republican, red state areas of Illinois, and people will say, no, that's not what we believe.